Another day, another Final Fantasy episode, but unlike the franchise that's dominated A Gamer Looks at 40 since March of 2024, yes, that is when we did our first Final Fantasy episode way back then, this series is coming to a close. Now, if you've been following along on my Discord channel, then you already know this, but for now, this will be the last Final Fantasy episode on this podcast for quite some time. Now, I'd still like to do an episode or two on 10 at some point, but honestly, that's going to be a ways away. So, let's finish this beast off right with some sparkling conversation about the insanely satisfying Final Fantasy IX. On this episode, we discuss gameplay, moments big and small, story beats, and other thoughts and musings about this PlayStation 1 classic. Time to grow with Zidane, rebel with Garnet, and contemplate our existential meeting with our favorite black mage Vivi as we embark upon episode 137 of A Gamer Looks at 40, Final Fantasy IX Part 2, all the other things we didn't discuss.
How far would you go to save a princess? Excellent. Now, the adventure begins. The fantasy returns. Final Fantasy IX.
Not only is Final Fantasy IX a joy to experience from a character perspective, it's also a blast to play. Now, even though the game's simplified mechanics may not have the crunch of previous entries, there's still a bunch of fun to be had battling bad guys and taking on combat challenges. Talking about the gameplay is Mekel Kasanova of TikTok fame, followed by Barry Carenza, then James and JJ of RetroFits, and finally Julian of the Stage Select podcast. Really be remiss if we didn't talk about the systems, considering Final Fantasy VIII was so famous for having, let's again say, obtuse gameplay systems and challenging to figure out.
You're being nice.
I am being nice. I'm just trying to be nice because I have a funny feeling the 8 series is going to be a lot of dunking. Which is fine, but 9 returned to, hey, if I get an item, I can equip it.
Yeah.
Yay! I learn things from the items I equip. It makes sense. There's points that go up.
Yes.
Great. There's levels. I get all of these things. Thank you for going back to some basics, and it's a very satisfying, simple system. Not my favorite in the series, but it's perfectly serviceable for what it's trying to do. For me, at least. What's your take on it?
I love the return to the classes because that was one of the things with Final Fantasy 7 and 8. You didn't really have classes. Anyone could be anything back in those two games.
True.
Like,
yes.
It really came with 7. It was what materia did you equip? How many slots did you have linking slots for your materia? For 8, it was a junctioning system. So anyone could be anything, which made it to a point where you didn't have incentive really to play as other characters. You could just have your 3 set party and they're good for everything unless you got those situations where it's split it and you're like, oh crap, I didn't level this character. I'm screwed. Because that could happen. Final Fantasy IX, what I loved about it, again, with the learning skills from the weapons, gave you incentive to grind. It gave you incentive to want to either find items or explore dungeons, go offshoot with your chocobo. I hated Tetramaster, but you play Tetramaster to get certain other items.
But Tetramaster is very optional. Tetramaster is very optional. It's super optional.
Except for that one time when they first forced it on you.
I'm trying to remember. Was it early on? Wait,
no, it's like a midway point. I think they gave you an option in the re-release that came out.
Okay, because I played the re-release. I played the re-release. So they might not have been. They might have done away with. Because I played it for a little bit. It's like, oh, no, thank you. No.
Yeah.
Moving on. Do I have to do this? No. Great. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, the original release forced you to play and forced you to win. Otherwise, you couldn't progress in the story.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Like that was not. I did not like it.
No.
I tried my best to get used to it, but it just didn't do it for me, especially coming off of how good, at least to me, I love Triple Triad.
A lot of people do. I'm not a card game person. I'm not a deck builder. I think I've discovered that as much as I enjoy my Pokemon TCG Mobile, which I do love me some TCG Mobile. I don't dig the deck building games. I played Balatro. Don't like it. It's like, I don't like this. I don't want to build a deck. And it's just too much. Played Inscription. Really liked it until Act 2 when you have to start building decks. I'm like, this is not fun. I don't want to build decks. I don't know. I'm not a card game person, I guess. I don't know. So for me, Triple Triad was not for me, especially losing it. Tetramaster was just... It did make sense. No, it made absolutely no sense.
No.
It made no sense. And I didn't understand what I was doing, and my characters were dying, and I'm like, you know what, do I have to do this? And again, in my remaster, I did not have to. So that's funny. That's funny that the original game, though, forces you to win a game to progress. With
a crappy deck, too.
See? I can't.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah, it seemed very it was random. It felt very random. Like I felt like there was lots of randomness, and I don't know. I didn't get too much into it, obviously, because I played it for a bit. And I was like, nope, not for me.
So I will say this one last little bit, touching on like the systems and everything. So the one thing I definitely have to say that the re-release or remaster did great was the battle speed. It was painfully slow in the original. Where I'm over here like I'm just waiting for that ATB gauge to oh my god, it was I hated it. The only thing I wish that they gave you an option on was when you wanted to activate trance. I did not like
I agree with that.
You know, like it's just all right, boom, took enough damage, automatic trance. Let me control it.
I agree with that. And I think, and I like what they did with it as far as the story goes, because it's tied to your emotions.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you're getting, once you experience intense emotions, you go into this trance mode. And what better way to get strong emotions than to get beat on senselessly over and over and over again? So you're like, enough is enough. But I agree. I understand it thematically from a story perspective. From a gameplay perspective, it would be nice to just hold that onto that when I get to that boss. Let me be overpowered and knock out the boss. Like, give me that option. I agree with you. That was always a little frustrating to be like, man, I don't. Yeah, it's like I'm just fighting some rando dude, and I'm in trance. Oh well, it made it so I couldn't count on it for strategy.
Yeah,
I just couldn't. I couldn't rely on it, and but even like the enemy, just going back to some more of the visual stuff in 9, I also was very struck by how well it's directed, like in its cutscenes. And the way it moves from the real world to cutscenes and back to the gameplay engine, like that seamless movement is so good. It allows the characters to all breathe and grow and just sit for a minute. Where it feels like 7 doesn't let you do that to a certain extent, but there's always some time travel or flashback, or now you're going back to this thing and going back to that thing. And 8 with its time travel, I feels like, again, just from my experience, was like I never have a chance to just like get to know these people. And I think a big part of that is the system. It's not called ATB. It's the system where you get to choose the little vignettes in the overworld where like, what was it called? Shoot now. Dang it.
It wasn't ATB. It was
ETB or something
active time skit or something like that.
Something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And that never came back.
No.
Final Fantasy.
And what people don't realize is, where was that pulled from? The Tales series.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. Because that originally started with the Tales series. That's where that came from. That's
cool. It might be ATS. It might be like active time scenario or something
like that. Yeah.
I think it's ATS. Yeah. It's great. I loved it. I loved going through and like getting these little vignettes because the characters would just go off. and do things on their own, and then you just peek in on what the characters are doing, and it's so much flavor. It's so fun. Yeah, you get some really great moments.
Another neat thing about 9 that we really didn't see as much in both 7 and 8 was the return of job classes. Like 7, you could, Tifa is a monk, Barrett, you could say, as a gunner, Yuffie is a ninja. But Sid is a dragoon, but it wasn't like the defining characteristics of like it wasn't as big. And then 8, Irvine was a gunner, Zell was a monk, but Equistus was, I believe, blue mage. But it still wasn't as predominant. But here you get that Zidane is very much a thief. Yes. Vivi is the epitome of FF1's black mage look.
Literally.
Freya is dragoon with the red mage aesthetics. Queen is the blue mage. Eco and Garnet are both summoners. Armoret is the monk, and Steiner is the knight. And it's kind of cool to see that really come back, and in the fantasy setting, because if you took a character like Vivi or Freya or definitely Quina and put them in 7 or 8's world, they would look so out of place.
Oh, totally.
So out of place. But they would look in place in Final Fantasy 6 or 5's or 4's
totally.
world.
Totally. The play of 9 much more simple than 8. Obviously, I think they learned their lesson from the crunchiness, and I'm sure there's people who I'll talk to about 8 who will say, "Oh no, I love." If it's a system you love diving into, God bless you, because I can imagine someone who's really into RPGs being really into that and being able to just fine tune characters. But 9 returns to a much simpler system. I agree. I think that it has just the right amount of grindiness to make it really satisfying for people like me who, like you said, hey, before I walk into this dungeon, let me make sure everything is up to spec here. Let me make sure I'm optimized without overwhelming the game itself, without dragging down the pacing. I think it's a really elegant system.
Either.
Or necessary, right? You don't have to do all that. So it really scratches the itch if you want to, but it also lets you just play it if you want to have a more breezy
it very
experience.
much reminded me of 6 with the Esper system.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing with the Espers. Oh, I got a new Esper. Let me equip it, grind a bit, get all the spells, and put it onto a new person, grind a bit.
Yep.
It was the same thing. And it was really, really cool because you got multiple pieces of gear when you get to a new town. And it was like, cool, now I'm going outside. I'm going to fight. And it made sure that the game was a little bit easier because I grinded that extra bit and I had the extra moves. But it was fun, and I never felt I was overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, I've got to grind for the next 8 hours. It was like, okay, cool, I'll spend the next 20 minutes grinding.
Yep.
And I'll have fun doing it. I didn't mind it.
No, didn't mind it at all. It's a lot of fun. The system is like active time scenario.
The ATV. ATE. Active time event.
Active time event.
That's it. Active time event where the game just stops and you have this little vignette, and it's it's a character thing that's completely optional, but it's so fun and good to see these characters just
you miss out on
things.
So much if you do those.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and sometimes they have consequences.
Yes.
There's one in particular where if you don't know to do it, then you miss out on getting like a free accessory that you can't get for like another 10 hours in game.
And there's also, whenever you go to the gambling city, you have to do them in a specific order or else you don't get to see all of them.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Trino.
Yes.
Night City. Yeah. I forgot about the auction there for a minute.
Oh, God. Yeah, the auction.
I love the auction.
It's
auction.
so great. Well, because if you go in and you know that you're like, because the thing that you want is not necessarily the key items. Those are just a way, like, you get them and then you trade them back to the nobles in town and like try to get more than you put in for them.
Yeah.
Right.
What you want are the really advanced accessories to like learn a ton of skills that you can get from the auction. And at some point, I feel like something that's really funny to do is go to Trino when you have an excess of cash, because they'll start the bidding and they'll be like, 5,000, 7,000, okay, 9,000, okay, 9,500, 10,000. And you just walk up and you like turn the dial up really high and be like, 47,500 gil. And nobody says anything. Everybody just shuts up and they're like, okay, dude, chill. Tip. You can have that one.
I mean, the auction was just a straight callback to 6, of course, but it was.
Except that there was nothing you couldn't get.
That's true.
Right.
Six pulled a fast one on you.
Tons of yes. I still want that airship toy. I still want it. I still want the airship toy.
And they let you have it in 9.
Yes.
Yes, you do. They let you have it.
Because you can get it from the guy in that first...
The coffee guy.
Yeah, the coffee guy.
I was just struck how well directed it is. Even like the cinematics, like the shot selection and the pacing of the cinematics. It really does draw you in. Final Fantasy IX really allows you to, again, talking about characters, really allows the characters to breathe and grow and live in space, and live with each other. And that's something where I felt like 8 and even 7 to a certain extent is constantly hurtling, constantly moving. Like we got to get there. We got to get there. We got to get to the next scene. We got to get to the next thing. But Final Fantasy IX has a lot of moments where it just settles down. And I like that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it reminded me of one of my favorite things that this game has that's never been done since, which is the active time events, the ATEs,
right?
Where you get to a town and then everybody splits up and they go do their things, and then you get to see these little vignettes with the characters, and you can miss some of them if you're not if you're not doing them in the right order, or there's certain times when you might get control of a character and be able to. Like for Vivi in particular, like if you didn't have a guide, you wouldn't know that like at a certain point you can just leave, and you can leave the town that you're in and find the place where he was being raised by his grandfather and get like a little bit of Vivi backstory there. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool moment. Yep.
Yeah, just tons of gorgeous little touches like that. It warms my heart.
Yeah, it is genuinely like a heartwarming game, and it feels, I don't want to say feels right, because that implies that familiar is right, because it does have all the familiar notes that of Final Fantasy games that I love, but it just feels so accomplished. Yes. I think that's the term I would use, accomplished. It's very confident in what it's trying to do, and it's very accomplished. And it's got that great mix of approachability and ease of play, and there's some crunchiness too. I mean, I really like the system where, obviously we're kind of back to like an XP system where we're leveling again, and levels matter, and you're learning things based on the equipment you have. Like all that stuff is really fun and good. It's just enough. It's just enough of everything. It's got a great balance to it. And the story is really cool too. It goes places.
It even harkens back to like the classic games where the final boss is just this like embodiment of evil that comes out of nowhere at the very last moment. It's like, wait, what is this? Who is this? What are we doing? Like, especially because like that game in particular, like, they play fast and loose with who like the antagonist is, because it's Kuja for a long time, but then it's Garland, but then it's Kuja. But no, it's actually this thing, Necron, and it's like, oh,
Necron, yeah,
okay.
I like the fact there's a Garland in there. That's cool. It's always cool to see Garland.
And that's when we were talking about Final Fantasy VIII, I was mentioning that like stuff feels missing from the story, And there is a part of 9 that feels missing where you go to like the shrines from, I mean, they're not the same ones from Final Fantasy 1, but they're a reference to the Final Fantasy 1 shrines.
Yeah.
And it's like those should have been bespoke dungeons and because you do go to Mount Golg, which is one of the dungeons from 1.
Yeah.
But it would have been cool if they had like those 4 bespoke dungeons where you fight like each of the elementals like you did in the first game.
Yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because we're back to crystals. Like we got crystals again. Like you know, all this stuff. And again, but it goes beyond nostalgia and it goes beyond fan service because at the very core are these really interesting characters doing interesting things and interacting and growing and learning. So when you get to that final scene, when you get to the haircut scene, right, which is, I was like, okay, this is wow. I mean, when you get to that final scene, when they finally embrace again after Zidane comes back, after everyone thinks he's dead, and you get
and
that,
the way that she pounds on him because she's frustrated and mad that he's been gone, and then she embraces it. Oh man, I'm gonna cry.
Leaps and spins him around. Just the energy, like all of that is so beautifully earned, and it's a thing that it's become a joke on games my mom found whenever I talk about love interests as things being earned in games, especially in movies. But that is one of the most earned moments. Like everything is earned, and I keep saying the same thing over and over again. But the point remains. I really appreciate about that. That's what I appreciate about the game a lot. I really had a blast with Final Fantasy 9. I was very glad I abandoned 8. Said, I'm just gonna play 9. People really like this one. And sure enough, it's a good one. No odds and ends episode of A Gamer Looks at 40 would be complete without a deep dive into some of our favorite moments, both big and small. To talk about this aspect of Final Fantasy IX is Barry, followed by Mekel, then Rick of the Pixel Project podcast rejoins the show, and finally Eric of the Unlockables podcast chimes in on the conversation.
And I feel like what they did with cinematics with 7 and then 8, they upped it to 9. Like in terms of like cinematics in the series, the Alexander versus Bahamut fight, or Odin, the Odin scene destroying the village. Like those 2 cinematic scenes are among the best in FF history and are most memorable. Like everyone remembers those.
Totally. And I want to dine a little bit on especially the Alexander moment when basically the castle just protects itself, like the wing. I think forgive me if I'm wrong, but like it sprouts wings and just starts wrecking on Bahamut. It is one of the most striking things about the cinematics of 9 is that the direction of it, like the shot selection, how they choose to pace them. They really took their cues from film. And it really is, I think, one of the best marriages of a film like cinematics, or even like an animated cinematic and a video game cinematic, where it's not just, hey, we're going to take a break from the gameplay to do this cool thing. It always seemed very seamlessly integrated, or more seamlessly integrated with everything going on. Now, of course, X with the more processing power, the PS2 would take that up as well. But I just love the direction of the cinematics in FF9. I think it's really smartly directed.
Oh, hands down. Like you could tell they had more experience. And again, you're going to see this a lot with games released at the end of a console life cycle. The team knows how to get the most out of that system at that point. And that shows with 9.
Totally.
9 is... When I played 9, it became my second favorite Final Fantasy at that point. Like it overtook 4. And 4 is such a great game.
Yeah.
And it just resonated with me. I was like, this is everything I wanted. Like... all my disappointment with 7, and if you're listening to this and you listen to my 7th episode, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. But 7 disappointed me. 8 disappointed me.
Yep.
9 was like this breath of fresh air, and I didn't play it at launch. Like I said, I played it the next year because I think it was like 2001. But it was like almost this hidden gem because it was buried. And I was like, no one's talking about 9. Let me play this game. And I was like, oh my God, like this is one of the best games no one's talking about. And it just incredible. And it's so funny because 10 overshadowed it, and we'll talk about 10 next time. And 10's a great game, but like you could tell they were done by different teams.
Totally different teams. Yes.
And the 9 team understood the assignment, and they came swinging. And like you say, like so many people still, Vivi is still up there in top Final Fantasy characters for a reason.
Moments from Final Fantasy IX that you remember? Again, I like focusing on those big moments from when you were a kid, and even again when you played it 2 years ago. Any like big moments that we didn't touch on that really resonated with you?
Going to the Black Mage Village. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the moment for me when I went from I'm having a good time to me going, ooh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Now I get why people really love this. Now I get why people fell in love with this, because this is heavy and emotional and powerful and grounded. It was great. I love that. Black Mage Village is a top tier moment in the entire franchise. I think I agree with that for sure. I can't imagine what that must have been like as a kid, like younger person.
It was so surreal. Like I remember like going through it and I'm just like, there's something very relatable about this. And I remember I would ask my mom, who at the time she was just the super, super religious type, to where like, oh, that's like Mortal Kombat type. Yeah. That type. Yeah. So like when I was asking her, she would just not want to talk about it. So I would have to ask my dad or my siblings, and then when I would let them, like, because I ladder save people. I do the ladder save so I can replay certain moments. And I remember letting them play through that part, and they were just like, they put the controller down. They're like, wow, that's heavy. Which I don't think you kids say these days, but back then, people say that's heavy.
That's heavy.
Like, it was very impactful to them. So like when they explained it to me, I was like, oh, I get it. And then you kind of get that again when you go to Terra and you meet Zidana's folks. And you go, basically, there's a parallel between the Black Mages and his folks. And he basically kind of goes through something similar to Vivi, which, not the finiteness, even though there is aspects of that there.
Yeah.
It's more of when you have that self-awareness and autonomy, when you see people, and this is relatable, especially nowadays, when you see people, it's like, man, are y'all coming off an assembly line? You think the same? Like, bro, I'm gonna say this. Look, no offense to the young Thundercats out there, but man, dressing the same. I know that Thundercat comment. They're like, wait, what? Thundercats? But like I see so many, like whenever I go to like the mall or go to a store, I see the young kids. They're all dressing the same hairstyle, same way they talk and act, and I'm just like, you would do well standing out, being different, having some sense of agency. And so like when I went back and I played it last year and I got to that part, like both with Black Mage Village and with the people on Terra. I'm just like, man, I can understand that, because now I'm like, how is it I can look around and see how things are different, but you guys are just locked in tunnel vision. Like it's wow. The amount of, I don't know how many people say this, but the amount of social commentary and Final Fantasy IX is so good.
Yeah, it's rich. It's very rich with that.
Which that game was made out here in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Oh, was it really?
It was from start to finish. It was made out here, and what's crazy is the building that they made it out of, which is in 4th Street Mall down in downtown Honolulu. I worked in the exact building and floor that Square Enix's headquarters used to be in.
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool.
Crazy. Super
that's
crazy.
cool. Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool.
If you ever come out here, okay, I thought my cat was trying to come in. But if you ever come out here, Sakaguchi-san's out here. Dude loves to surf. Usually he's in the Waikiki Kapahulu area. If you go to Safeway Kapahulu, you'll run into him because he's always there. He's always
That's
there.
awesome. That would be a weird moment of like I don't know if I could talk to you. Can I talk? Are you talkable? Can I speak to you, sir? I don't know if you are. I'm sure he's delightful. I think you actually mentioned this. If you actually have had some conversations, I'm sure he's delightful. But I'd be like,
what do I say?
What do I say to you? How do I interact with you? I don't know. I think social anxiety might kick in a little bit there. I'd be like, that's like if I ever met like Uematsu, like I don't know what I would say to you, like genius songwriter. I don't know. What do I say to you other than hi, I'm a fan. Me and 30 million other people. Yeah, it's just weird. I don't know.
It'd just be like, don't go anywhere. Be right back. Come back with all your stuff. Please sign. Please sign.
Sign all of it. Sign everything. Everything. Whatever I have, just sign.
Sign me.
Go run out, get a tattoo right where just get it tatted up right there. Just this outline, don't screw it up. There it is. Just that outline. I don't have a single tattoo on my body, but you know what? I do now. Here we are. Any big moments that you remember really fondly, again, as a kid, or even when you play it now? Obviously, there's big moments. Let's actually back it up this way. Are there any small moments that had a big impact on you in that game? Because obviously we have our big ones. We have, the hair cutting off, and we have the ending, of course, which is beautiful. Any small moments that had like a really big impact on you?
Small moments. I think there are two that come to mind, and I'm sure there are much more, but even these two are maybe medium, not quite small.
Sure.
The first one that I think of is Zidane and Vivi they hang out a lot throughout the story. They are sort of a brother dynamic, a brother duo. Mm-hmm. Not quite. Vivi sort of does look up to Zidane. He kind of reluctantly, even though he doesn't really know how, gives brotherly advice to him. And when they're under the stars at Aiko's village, and they're sort of bonding and he's giving life advice, it ends, and it's been a little bit since I've played this, I might be misremembering it. It sort of ends with Zidane's not able to kind of give the advice that I think he wishes he could, but it ends with him sort of just saying, not quite just you got to trust in the process, but let's for the moment just appreciate the beauty. And then, of course, the scene ends with them taking a whiz off of the Grand Canyon, a sacred rite of passage between two brothers. But I think there's a lot to be said about that, right? Like, you won't always have the vocabulary or the life experience to give the best advice or to approach things as you wish. And sometimes it's okay, even in moments of turmoil, to just stop and appreciate the surroundings, and allow yourself a moment of grace, a moment to either literally or metaphorically whiz off of the canyon with your best friends.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for being present. I think that's a good example. I remember that scene, and I think you got it pretty much right. There's something to be said for being present. Just being in the moment with somebody, even if you don't have the correct answer or the most eloquent answer, just being there and having a moment of frivolity can be helpful. And I can point to moments in my life where where I've had struggles and someone was just present and not giving advice and not giving me a big old, speech or anything. Just being there is, I think, very valuable. And I think that's a good example of that.
There is, I do want to shout out my other favorite moment. I wouldn't call it a small moment, but I never hear anybody else talk about it whenever your favorite moments of this game comes up. It's when Steiner and Beatrix are defending Alexandria from the Mist Monsters. This is like in Disc 3.
Yeah.
Do people use that as a metric now that it's on Steam and PlayStation? I don't know. But it's in Disc 3. They're defending Alexandria for the Mist Monsters. It's as they're going through the thick of their crisis of autonomy. Should I be devoting my life to this kingdom? I'm so much more than that. And it's also as they're sort of allowing the development and acceptance of their feelings for each other bloom. Maybe that's more so how Beatrix feels it. Steiner probably just, didn't realize it as it was all going through. Yeah. And, you go through, you do some fights in they're tough fights, you're fighting together. And it eventually comes down that you're surrounded. And I'm trying to remember the name of the song. It's a reworking of Red Roses of May, which is Beatrix's theme, but it's much more. And by the way, like the soundtrack, it's just one of Uematsu's best.
Yeah, by far.
But the two of them are back to back, and they have this moment where I don't even remember the dialogue. Like Steiner is about to confess, and Beatrix, says, "Save your valediction. We'll live to fight another day," or something.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's the development between that relationship that's just really beautiful, and seeing them fight for something bigger that was also once their world entire, as a vehicle for fighting for each other. That was just really, really, really poignant.
Yeah, that is a very poignant moment. I think that's the one when they're fighting together, and it's around like that, like 3/4 of the way through. Yeah, I remember that moment. It's interesting. Their connection is so interesting and good and so subtle, right? It kind of gets overshadowed by the bigger things that are happening, again, Zidane and Dagger and Vivi and all that. It's one of these subtle things that I'm glad I was able to latch onto. And if I replay it again, I really want to kind of zero in on that relationship, because they have, and everyone in the game really grows through doing. And I think that's an example of that. When they were going through their situation, they're fighting alongside each other and they're growing through doing, which is something that in the other games doesn't happen as often. And I'm always a fan in any fiction when characters grow through doing, through talking, through experiencing, and not just sitting stagnant. Nobody sits stagnant in Final Fantasy IX, which I think is really good. And that's something that kind of carried over to 10 as well.
I think maybe Amarant does. I kind of think,
fair point.
I kind of think that he's the worst Final Fantasy character of all time.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. I always forget he's there.
Yeah, he's just kind of a nothing. Like he's there for like one scene that could have just been done in so many other ways. And he's just, he's the edgy guy that appealed to young kids like me. I loved Amarant whenever I was a kid.
Sure.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of him. I never use him anymore. Just get him out of here.
I always forget he's there.
I'm always interested to see how, if the remake is true, which it seems like it is, but if it's true, I would be very interested in many things, but really I want to see how they handle Amarant.
I know. They either flesh him out or he's not there at all. I guess he has to be there, I guess. I don't know. I guess he kind of has to be there. If you had to pick one huge moment and one small moment that were really impactful, what would be the ones you would select? A big moment that we all remember, and one small moment that maybe people have forgotten.
For me, I mean, the biggest moment is easily the Alexander Bahamut fight. I think that was just because that was also it was also a reveal.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, Garnet's also a summoner, and she with Eco, summoned Alexander. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I really I hate to classify it as a small moment, but it was very impactful, and it's the symbolic of the cutting of the hair.
Yeah.
Because this is not the first game, or maybe it is the first game. I don't know, but this is not the only game that does this. A big example, if you played Tales of the Abyss, they had a very similar thing with Tyr, where she had long hair and she came to terms and she changed and she did the same thing, cut her hair in front of Luke, and was just like, this is symbolic of me growing and changing. It's not just a hairstyle, it's the symbol of it, which is exactly what Dagger did, and right in front of Zidane. And it was just so powerful because it was her coming to terms with everything her mother did, everything that was going on behind the scenes, everything that she represented as the princess, changing the name to hide that fact, taking on the alias of Dagger, and just being like, no, I'm not going to sit there and cry about it. I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah. She has her moment. She has her moment. I believe that's after she can't speak, right? That's the first time. That's the first time Zidane runs into her after a period where she's not unable to speak, and she's found her voice. She's kind of dealt with it, and I think that's really cool. But when characters in games get the chance to deal with things, and I think everybody in 9, to a certain extent, gets that opportunity to just deal with it. And not in a way that and I don't want that to sound like it's dismissive, but in a way where we all have to kind of just at some point deal with what happened in our lives. We deal with our past and we process it and we move forward. And I think that's evident in most of the characters in 9. I really do. I think you can point that light at a lot of different places.
I love the attack on Alexandria when Steiner and Beatrix go out into the street and like fight for their kingdom, and that soundtrack just swells. That's such a fantastic, great moment for both of them as they kind of realize they have feelings for each other, and getting to fight alongside Beatrix after her kicking your ass in like 3 consecutive battles. definitely feels really, really great not to be on the receiving end of.
Yes.
And to this day, Beatrix is one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters because even as not a playable character,
she's
her
great.
arc is very good too, and she's just a badass. Like,
yep, she's super cool, and it is so empowering when you finally get her on your side, and it's really, really satisfying. I love the Steiner Beatrix arc, and I love their relationship. Steiner is one of those characters. I've had a couple people so far. One person say that they growing up didn't like Steiner, and I could see that if you were a kid. But I love that character. That idea of everything I was told may not be the truth. Just because I believe it doesn't mean it's the truth. And that is a scary place to be for a lot of people, and I really dig when Steiner goes through that. But I agree with you. I love that moment.
Yeah, and then you mentioned too, just kind of I wanted to circle back on this, the relationship between Garnet and Zidane.
Yes,
it never, I think one of the criticisms too is that Garnet's not one of the stronger particular female characters in this, or at least not one of the favorite female characters in the series. She always seems to get overlooked by because Tifa and Renoa and Aerith, who are all great characters.
Right.
But I think Garnet has her own strengths that none of them have. I really like the way the relationship between Zidane and Garnet plays out over the entire story, because it is kind of like this slow burn. Like Zidane's kind of like this flirty, teenager boy at first, he sees a girl that he likes, just flirting with her. That's what boys will be boys, right? That's that whole kind of thing. But they have these like organic moments where, like you said, it is like really awkward. And then they have these really tender moments. And then there's just these silent moments. And the relationship kind of goes through like all the ups and downs of what you would expect, like going through like a normal relationship and learning about somebody and learning to love somebody and learning to care about somebody that, you know, you're trying to determine if you want to spend the rest of your life with them. But like I said, at the end, Garnet realizes that he's gone, that she really did love him, and he comes back at the end, and it's such a beautiful moment. It's a great payoff for kind of how the peaks and valleys of their story and their relationship. And it's one of my favorite ways that kind of dynamic is displayed, and because it's really easy to do a relationship where it's like, oh, they very clearly love each other, or I think to do it the wrong way where it's like Renoa very clearly likes Squall and is into him, and Squall's just like, whatever. And it takes like most of the game before he's just like, oh, maybe I do care about this. Yeah, maybe I do care about this person.
Right.
And it just feels natural. I mean, they get mad at each other, and Garnet, for a big portion of the game, like is just not putting up with Zidane's shenanigans. Like she has no tolerance for it. So
yeah, and Zidane doesn't know what to do with that. He's not been challenged in that way, so he's like a lot of people. You know, when like, I just don't know what to do with this. It's so good. I love the moment when they have to get married. It's so awkward and silly, and it's such a funny moment. But again, the pacing in this game is so on point.
Yes,
the way that kind of builds out and it kind of articulates is so fun and good. I just got a good laugh, but also good story and character building. The game is always working on the characters, which is great and very refreshing in this big story again of Kuja and Necron and Garland and all that sort of thing. So the focus on the characters in 9, I think, is its biggest strength personally.
Oh yeah.
Time once again to say thank you to our wonderful patrons who support the show financially on Patreon. Big ups and thumbs up and high fives to Lucas Thompson, Philip Becker, Terry Kinnair, Games with Coffee, BT Goebbels, Seth Sergil of the All End Media Network, Julian of the Stage Select Podcast, The Let's Play Princess, Greg Seward of the Player One Podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Joey Coro, Lindsay Harney, DJ Merrill, and the one and only editor extraordinaire, Pete Harney. If you would like to join these amazing human beings, by all means, head on over to patreon.com/A Gamer Looks at 4040. Check out the tiers and sign up today. Not to be overshadowed by the other aspects of the game, Final Fantasy IX's story combines swashbuckling daring-do, political intrigue, and universe-threatening stakes for a balanced tale that feels appropriately personal and overwhelming all at the same time. Joining us for this section is Eric, followed by Rick, then Julian chimes in and concludes with Mekel Kasanova. To just kind of, again, very theatrical. And I love the way you mentioned how the game itself is theatrical, because I am in love with how the game is paced. Yes. Even not just the cinematics. I think the cinematics are some of the best in the series because the pacing is fantastic. It is presented like a play, like a theater production. And the reason I connected with it so much is I grew up on the 8-bit and 16-bit games. So I'm 44, so I'm older, obviously. My first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. That was my first one when I was
since the original.
I've been there since the original. I was my first one. I was 8, and so for me, I grew up with characters who were expressive in their faces, who were exaggerating their emotions because they had to be in those sprites. That's how he told the story. Yeah. So for me to go back to that in 9 was, again, just extremely refreshing as an old school fan, as someone who loves the older games and still appreciates the newer ones too. Don't get me wrong. But the magic of having those more kind of, not chibi characters, but more of those kind of cuter, condensed, more fanciful design, I really dug. I love the fact that Zidane had a tail. Like, that was just really cool.
Yes.
Like, I love that. It's a silly little thing, but it's cool. And of course, it pays off at the end, right? Everything really pays off well. So I agree. I love the art style of 9. I really dug the high fantasy, and it just felt like an old school Final Fantasy game to me. Again, for me, being someone who loved the game since the first one, that was a really nice thing for me.
Yeah, and I think too, you kind of hit the nail on the head about how playing 9 reminded you of like all these other things of the games you played before. That was its intended purpose. It was kind of meant to be a return to the series' roots, a celebration of the first 8 games that had come before, because Square knew they were going into like a new era with Final Fantasy X they were working on, obviously Kingdom Hearts. They were going in this much more like cinematically driven, more like almost movie-esque style. I mean, they were literally making a movie. They were making Spirits Within at the time.
Right,
so
yeah.
They knew they were going in this new direction and that things would be different, with more powerful hardware coming out. So Sakaguchi wanted to make one last game that kind of combined all of the best elements of all the games that he'd made before. And the product is Final Fantasy IX. Some people use that as a knock against it, where they're like, oh, well, 9 is just kind of like this collection of like best hits of the Final Fantasy series up until then. And yeah, well, it might be. I think that because it is a collection of best hits or best moments, it is probably, to me, the best expression of what Final Fantasy truly is at its core. And ever since we've gone away from 9 and kind of gone to 10, and now we have in 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It seems that ever since then, like every Final Fantasy game that comes out, either people really, really love it or really, really hate it. Like the true fans will either really love it or really hate it. Like there's no pleasing all of the Final Fantasy fan base. And I think that depends a lot on the game that you first played, because that defines your lens of what Final Fantasy actually is. I think I have a pretty high tolerance for all the Final Fantasy games because my first game was 9, and 9 does kind of have all of the best qualities and all the best themes and moments from all the games leading up to it. And I see a lot of Final Fantasy, all those moments and things in a lot of the games going forward from 9, even though some of them like 15 and 16 weren't received the best. So I think me having that lens of 9 as like the celebration of the series as a whole allows me to more easily enjoy the newer games that come out that people don't think are actually Final Fantasy, in quotes.
Final Fantasy IX filled with amazing moments. What are some moments that connected with you? You already talked about Vivi, of course, and some of the moments going on there. But what are some other moments that like you remember very vividly impacting you?
Oh man, where do I even begin?
Well, I would say let's do it this way. Maybe what was one of the moments that really impacted you as a kid, and what are some moments that impact you now? Maybe one from different time periods.
Yeah, so I think Vivi's story is impacted me both as a kid and as an adult, because, like I said, as a kid, that was the first time that I really engaged with any kind of media that had that kind of theming to it about the what it means to exist and our mortality and stuff. And being younger and being confronted with that isn't nearly as terrifying as, being older and now that you have a life and confronting that, knowing that the unstoppable march of time forward, waits for nobody. But there have been different stages of my life where I've kind of identified with a lot of what the characters have all gone through, right? Zidane's story, well, he's largely there for his friends, towards disc 3 and the end of the game. He has to come to terms with his identity of who he actually is, right? It's revealed that he was meant to be this angel of death created to replace Kuja, which is why Kuja's lifespan would soon run out. And so Zidane can't really come to terms with this aspect of identity. And, as you go through your 20s and come out of college and get into the real world and realize it's much different than you were told how it was growing up, I had to come to terms with those same things too. It's like, what is my identity? What is my purpose in this world now knowing that everything I kind of was taught when I was younger wasn't necessarily the truth. And same thing with that kind of arc of thinking with Steiner's whole story when he goes through trying to figure out duty and morality. I was raised in a pretty religious household, and I was always told at a young age, you go to church and you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you'll have a great life. And coming out, and that was like my duty to fulfill those things, and coming out, not experiencing the things that I told that they were, my view of the world is clashing with what I was taught.
Right.
So just those kind of moments, specific ones that stick out to me.
And that's a thing that was missing in 7, to a certain extent, 8, definitely, where there was that lightheartedness, that whimsy that exists in Final Fantasy 6 and 4 and the classics that I grew up with. Final Fantasy is, I think, always at its best when it's balancing lightheartedness and drama and balancing those two tones. And I think 9 does an exceptional job at balancing those two things. I really do. I think you have fun, whimsical moments, and you have these really deep, existential, thought-provoking situations. And what that all resolves into is a very satisfying conclusion and a really satisfying overall experience.
And I think it's because 9 is a throwback to every Final Fantasy that came before.
Right. Sure.
And because 1 through 6 is more numbers than 7 and 8, there's more representation there. But 1 through 6 was theater. And I mean theater, theatre, like the concept of theater. Final Fantasy was special in those days because it was theatrical, partly because of, the comedy bits, the lightheartedness, the whimsy, and then partly too just how it was presented. You didn't have high fidelity graphics that look like a TV show. You had to make characters do the little wagging of the finger. You had to do the eye popping animations. These exaggerated movements and moments that look exaggerated up close, just like theater, but when you're in the audience looks kind of normal. It's part of the unspoken agreement between audience and actor that, this exaggerated quality is to enhance the experience, to give you a sense, to suspend your disbelief. And starting with 7, they started to get away from that. 10 kind of lives in that in-between area. But then, of course, you look at the games now with 16, where it's completely abandoned that. It wants to be an HBO drama. And whether or not that lands for you, that's up to taste. But it is not the theater of Final Fantasy that we used to have. And I much prefer this to Game of Thrones starring Clive Rosfield.
The second you said HBO drama, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, yeah, like an HBO drama. Like it's like something out of, Max. Yeah, exclusive on Max. That's really interesting. And I love how you equate that to theater. You're right. And also to the same extent to theater, where a lot of it is in one frame. It's all staged on one place, especially in the old 16-bit games. Everything, we didn't have the ability to be cinematic because that was not a word we had back then. That wasn't a thing we had back then. Everything was on one screen for the most part. One thing I do love about 9 is how well directed it is in those cinematics. I think the direction of that game is fantastic. I think the direction is so good, again, in letting characters breathe, letting them interact. And a big part of that, which I think is something that's not discussed a lot, is the ATE system, where you can get those little vignettes when they're in towns or when they can just separate and do things for a minute or two. And I love that. And I wish I wish Final Fantasy would go back to that a little bit. Maybe they won't, but I love that because it gives characters a chance to just be on their own and experience, and us to experience them experiencing firsthand.
Yeah, you can make a comparison to that to like footnotes in a book, or like different chapters in a book even, or like a Saturday cartoon, where you get a B plot of, meanwhile, elsewhere, you get this other thing. And I agree with you. I like that a lot. They, what is it in 16? Not ATE, active time lore, I think is what it's called.
Oh, is that okay?
Or some kind of thing. It's a little different, where it gives you context of like different events and vocabulary and people and places that are relevant to what's going on right now. But you're right. We never had that meanwhile elsewhere kind of thing with the ATEs moving forward. I agree. I much prefer that. It makes it feel more like, the theater that it is, or the fantasy story that it is, rather than a 25-hour movie.
Yeah, lights go off on this side of the stage. Lights go on this side. A thing happens while they change the set over here. And there's something very magical about that. There's something very intriguing and lively about that kind of fluidity, for lack of a better term. So it sounds like the main thing that grabbed you when you were younger was the story. it sounds like it was one of your first experiences with story in a game. You said you played some Pokemon and other games. What about the story of Final Fantasy IX grabbed you back then, if you can recollect?
It's tough to recollect. A lot of this is going to be sort of reconstructing how I might have felt. I mean, you know how it goes. We get older and the memories slip away. Yeah. From what I can remember, first of all, the setting, that was a huge part of it. It was a sort of medieval-esque setting. Obviously 7 and 8 had come out before this. Legend of Dragoon was around the same time as well. Yep. I wasn't a stranger to JRPGs after a while, and I liked 7 and 8 and Legend of Dragoon, but this fantasy setting of 9 with an aesthetic that wasn't so realistic. Chibi is often the word that gets thrown around. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's a softer aesthetic. It's a little bit more curved around the edges. Yeah. That combined with the medieval aspect was just something that I was really into. And I'm still into that sort of thing today. I wasn't as into the sci-fi stuff. And seeing all of these characters, only some of which were human, it made it feel more fantastical. And that was something that stuck out to me immediately.
Speaking of story, what were are there any story beats that you remember intensely, either big or small, that you just kind of remember hitting you strongly or hitting you as again, we talked about the Black Mage moment, which of course I think a lot of people, but
the Black Mage moment for sure. Zidane finding more of his own people in the other world is definitely like a big one. It didn't hit me, I think, as hard as it hits a lot of people when I played it again in 2020. But there's that part where towards the end where he's just he's given up, and it's a really intense moment. But it didn't. I should play it again now, and I plan to because I'm currently going back through the series. But I wonder if it's going to hit me harder now that because I've been through a lot of stuff since the last time that I played this game. Sure. So maybe it'll hit me even harder this time around. Possibly. But even just I think for me it's I really loved that this time around they used, and I guess 8 did this a little bit, but they used the CG to focus on character, and I loved that. I love the fact that when Garnet is trying to get away from the castle at the beginning, she dons a white mage robe.
Oh yeah, yep.
Just little things like that. Yep. It's just really great.
And I want to touch very quickly on tone, because that right there is an example of the tone of 9 that would not happen in 7, that would not happen in 8. The idea that the regent of the area, Cid, is this little creature who finally gets the cure and he just turns into another little creature. The silliness of that is so good and refreshing. And you said initially refreshing, and that is the biggest thing for me, was refreshing. This feels like a fun adventure with actual stakes, with characters I care about that I want to see succeed, where the other two, not quite. 7 is a different thing, of a different beast. 8, I was in school. I don't want to be in school. So yeah.
Would you say, because this is kind of an opinion I had back in the day, and I still hold it true now, I feel like 9 is the perfect middle ground and amalgamation of Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 4.
I would agree with that. I think with tonally, with setting, I think the relationship between Zidane and Garnet is probably as good as Locke and Celis. In 6, definitely better than I would say anything in 7, and certainly anything in 8. That ending, again, not to spoil it for those who haven't played it. Again, this is a spoiler cast, so we can, but that's fine. We don't have to.
Okay.
I'm like, I didn't spoil. Oh yeah, it's well designated as spoiler cast, especially with these. Like, I usually don't mention it on the earlier games because it's a 30-year-old game. I mean, come on. But especially with games like this, especially that 9 might be getting that remaster that we've all been looking for. I definitely don't want to be a little more careful with 9, but this is a spoiler cast. That ending when she embraces Zidane and launches herself at him, it is so beautiful. Yeah. So stunning. What was your take on it when you saw it for the first time as a kid, and even when you played it again 2 years ago?
Man, as a kid, I was like, because I was so wrapped up in Zidane, I was like, the stakes, like Bill said, guys, the stakes just kept getting higher and higher, and like when you get to, I believe it's Terra, the other planet.
Yes.
When you get there and then big reveals happen, and then you have Zidane go through that whole, like he has a whole character shift for like one section, and you're just like, whoa, it got real serious that even he was affected, which is so human because we can have the most positive people around us and they can have that one day. And that was his. When he was just like, leave me alone. I just like his animation, his walking animation change. He had his own theme song. You Are Not Alone. Oh my God, that. Oh, Nobuo Uematsu, you just.
The music's so good.
So
music
good.
is so ridiculously good. Yeah, you can't even. It's insane. But anyway,
it was so good, and like it got to the point where when we got to the end. And, certain things happen. I was just like, man, I don't think Zidane's going to make it. And then they basically leave you on a cliffhanger of, he didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
Everyone moves on because, and that's the interesting thing about the end. Again, we're getting spoiler cast so we can, but what's interesting about the end, and it's not too much of a spoiler, it's the epilogue of the game is, I think, a year or two later.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. It's like a year later or 2 year or two later, where Alexandria has been repaired and things are back to normal-ish, and we have certain relationships happening and people have kind of moved on, which makes that final scene of Zidane against Zidane or Zidane reappearing just beautiful. Beautiful. It's just such a good, it's probably one of my favorite endings of a Final Fantasy game. It's got to be it's up there because it was so well earned. Like all that relationship was earned. That moment was earned. And yeah, dude, that was awesome. I'm like, man, I'm so glad I played this other than 8.
It really felt like for me, when I beat it, I was just like, that was the first time I could say, this is a complete game that literally it didn't have any loose threads. There was nothing, everything wrapped up. I know people back in the day were saying, some of the people that were fans, because, hey, we didn't have social media, but we had game facts. We had the forums.
Oh boy, did we.
And I remember seeing conversations in there where people were like, hey, we need a sequel to it. I'm like, no, it wrapped up. It was the only thing I would say that was a left field in Final Fantasy IX. This is the one thing that I have forever had a problem with. Is Necron. Where the heck did he come from?
We were talking about that, and where the character, where the end badge just shows up. Necron just appears.
You're like, who?
It's classic Final Fantasy. It's classic like Stephen King, where at the end of the book, we don't know how to end this book, but we need something bigger than Kuja, and we need something bigger than Garland. We need something bigger. We need a big force. So let's just introduce somebody at the end that's this big, all powerful force in the universe. Cool. But for me, while I agree with you, it was one of those things where he appeared. I think he's like the source of life. He comes from the crystal after a thing is destroyed. I forget exactly what happens, but as this kind of like world eater, we wouldn't have known this. We wouldn't have known this power exists without Kuja going all trance and doing what he does. We didn't know this character even existed. So now this evil is here. We now have to deal with this evil. I'm okay with that as a trope. I'm okay with that. Like, hey, Ultimate Evil we didn't know existed now exists. What do we do with it? I think that's fine. But I agree. It's very Final Fantasy. And then it's like, hey, here's a big thing to fight now at the end. You're like, okay, cool.
Dude, that made me replay the game. Like, after I beat it, I replayed it. I think back in the day, I replayed it like 3 times looking for clues as to, that's how you know we had time back then, people.
We did have time.
Can't do that today now. But, you know, I was just like, where, you know, because when I was looking to figure out, did I miss something? Like, where did he come from? He's just there.
He's there. He's an ultimate evil that just appears because we unearthed a bad thing because a bad guy did a bad thing and a really bad thing showed up. So now we got to beat the bad thing. From music to guides to random thoughts by random people, it's always fun to give our guests room to say words with little connective tissue or reason to exist. Joining the show for some additional thoughts and perspectives is Rick, followed by James and JJ, who just happen to be 2 of the most random people I know. And I love them for it. Let's listen in. Yeah, man. Any other thoughts on Final Fantasy? Any other personal thoughts on Final Fantasy IX? It sounds like this is a game. When people say a game's their favorite, there's usually a strong emotional connection to it, and it sounds like you've experienced that. You've talked about how it's shaped the way you look at some of your job situations, how it's shaped other things. What other kind of personal attachment or personal changes would you assign to Final Fantasy IX? Like drawing those lines.
Well, of course, if we're talking personal connections, I mean, I've got to talk about the soundtrack. That's far and away, it's one of my favorite Uematsu soundtracks that he's ever done for games. Lost Odyssey is up there as well. Obviously, 6 and 8, FF6 and 8 are classic too. Yep. And I like 9 a lot. 9 does leitmotifs, I think, better than most other Final Fantasy games in the series does them. 8 was interesting because the leitmotif was about the love between Squall and Rinoa, not like Squall's theme, Quistis's theme. I think 9 is kind of Uematsu was firing on all cylinders starting with like 6 and then just every single one was just an incredible powerhouse. And then of course he got burnt out by 10 and he's like, I can't do this by myself anymore.
Yeah, I'm done.
9 is just really special. I mean, everything from the opening recorder consort, you know, that modal harmony from like you would hear in like 1600 to all the way to the ragtime piano that you hear in Treno. You know, there's so much diversity of style and a lot of really singable melodies, a lot of reprising of melodies under different circumstances. Like there's Vivi's theme gets briefly reprised when the Black Waltzes are causing destruction. And it's really powerful. Beatrix's theme gets completely reworked from, what would you call it? Like a ballad of languished emotion to a triumphant like war song, like picture like people drinking beer to get riled up to go to war. It kind of gets reworked into that kind of. I think that's really, really special. And there's also callbacks to earlier Final Fantasies. Like I'm pretty sure the theme of 1 is pretty specifically the moon theme of 4. It's I think there is a strong argument to be made that this is the best Final Fantasy soundtrack with Uematsu full time. I'm not going to say that it is if it's not, you know, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you prefer 4 or 8, but I think there's a strong argument to be made that this one is the strongest.
I think it's the most cohesive cohesive yet at the same time, like you said, varied and so much variety. And that Uematsu is so great at variety because he draws from so many different influences for his music. It feels very cohesive, but yet extremely varied. And I love the variations, like you said. It's really a love letter to everything that's gone before. I totally agree. I think it's an exceptional soundtrack. Yeah, go for it, please.
No, I was just going to tag on. You've got the sweeping orchestral stuff. You've got like the intermezzo style themes that you get with like Alexandria and Vivi's theme. Steiner's theme directly quotes, not directly, but 90% quotes Prokofiev, his Romeo and Juliet suite. And then, you've got things like the ragtime piano or a sultry saxophone representing Baku and the Tantalus crew. Yeah, it's just so good.
It's so much there. There's so much. It's definitely one of the most outside the game listenable. I always have a huge affinity for 6, of course. That's my favorite. And again, that's a personal favorite. I also love 10's soundtrack is sensational. I mean, Return to Xanarkand is one of my favorite things he's done. But 9 just has a cohesive, like, beginning to end, it's beginning to end good, like beginning to end quality with all that variety.
I think the thing that I always say is like Return to Xanarkand is the best Final Fantasy theme. Terra's theme, which is like the world map theme of 6, is the best world map theme. And then I'm blanking on the ending credits for 9. That's the best ending credits theme.
Yeah. God, so good. Yes. I think I'd have to listen to 9's ending credits again, but I'll have to do that after this conversation. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And it's interesting talking to you when you played it at the time, because I only played it recently. I didn't have a PS1 growing up. I started with like the original Nintendo, as you can see on my hat. Like I'm older, so I never had a PS1 growing up. I was kind of in college and doing college things, and I wasn't really doing that. So for me playing it now as a over 40-year-old, I'm just struck on how much of a breath of fresh air it is compared to 7 and 8. When's the last time you've played it personally?
So I did for like my show's 100th episode.
That's right.
Ish.
Yep.
It wasn't exactly, but we covered the show in the very early days, back whenever we were a trio. I'm the only remaining member. It was amicable, the split. Everything's fine. We're fine. But
you do have to preface with that sometimes, right? Like, what happened? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want people getting the wrong impression. It was fine. We're all still friends. But I'm the only remaining member, and I looked back because I kind of pushed it on them. We were all kind of trading games back and forth, and I pushed it on them. I wasn't really happy with how it went, so I said for the 100th episode, I want to redo it. So me and Eric Guess from the Unlockables podcast, a Kingdom Hearts podcast, we did 5 episodes on the game. This would have been January of 2024, so just over a year ago. So that was the last time that I went through this.
Awesome. And what about the game now strikes you compared to when you played it as a kid? Because obviously 2 totally different perspectives, 2 totally different situations. What about the game really still connects to you in a personal way as you play it now?
I can give you 2 answers. One of them is a quicker answer that's more related to gameplay. And that is turn-based combat for me has just always been my preferred way to play video games. I have nothing against, third-person action or racing or fighting. Like, I love fighting games, actually. But when it comes to video games that I love, games that just, make me feel at peace, it's always turn-based combat. And 9 is kind of a pure expression of that. Is it my favorite Final Fantasy combat system? No. That's actually 10-2 is my favorite. Is it the most, exciting, innovative? No, not at all. It just does what it does, but it does it well. Yeah. If you're factoring away things like load times based on the hardware, it does the ATB battle system very well. Yep. And that's part of what keeps me coming back. It's just a very, to me, exciting system. Now, this may or may not be more interesting, but narratively, what keeps me coming back is this is the kind of story that comes along so rarely, at least in video games, in that it is able to deliver to the viewer, to the player, something new with each time they go through it. As a kid and I go through it, a lot of the themes that were coming through, things like love, Zidane being in love with Dagger, and it's unrequited because they can't be together. Like, that is something that's easy to grasp. And Vivi kind of feeling like, he doesn't have any friends. That's very easy for young people to grasp and to grab onto and say, I feel that too. And then as you get older, those themes start to change a little bit. Unrequited love takes a different kind of a meaning. What it means to belong or to have a home, that kind of changes. Or going to another character, Steiner, somebody that I did not like at all as a kid. I could not care less about this guy's arc. Now is my favorite character because his whole arc as an adult, it resonates with me completely differently. It's about finding who you are and asking yourself, should I really be devoting my life to my job? Like, who am I as a person? It's a totally different game whenever you play it, looking at it through that lens. And that comes along rarely in video games. I love games like Chrono Trigger. But narratively speaking, it's not quite as dense. A lot of games that I love aren't quite as dense. It's part of what makes Final Fantasy and Sakaguchi's work so spectacular.
But yeah,
that actually brings me around to 9 because I don't know if you had the official strategy guide to 9. You did?
I did.
Okay,
I did
so
not.
Oh
yeah. That used to be one of my things that I would like just collect the strategy guides.
Oh yeah.
And then of course 9's was half of it was online. Here's the basic guide. You want more? Go online. Go to this website.
Yeah. Half the guide was actually online, and it just had URLs written in the book to find the rest of the answer.
Wait a minute. Hold the phone.
I'm 100% serious.
I gotta pump the brakes on this 6 conversation. We'll jump in this. We'll go back to 6. So you're saying that the official strategy guide for 9 was half a guide?
And the other half was on the website.
Maybe 2/3, I would say, because it didn't have enough information that you could beat the bosses and do the storyline.
And it had a bestiary.
Most of the secrets.
It had a bestiary in it, an item, like the index, basically.
Okay, but everything else was online. That's
pretty much
bonkers. That's ridiculous. Wow.
Yeah.
That would really annoy me.
Of course, like the hardest bosses, it only had like the description and maybe like how much health they had, not any strategies for how to fully beat them.
See, and this is where I'm not gonna get on this. I'm not getting on this soapbox here in this forum about preservation and digital this and physical that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna yell at my clouds. I have many clouds. I'm not gonna yell at you, clouds. That is crazy because you have to type in a URL. And this is like 99, 2000. No one's on laptops, really. You're sitting there. Your TV is not by your computer generally. Your computer is in like a family room someplace. No. It's not like now where I could jump on my phone and just look up, whatever, find this, find that. You have to go to a computer, type in a URL, misspell it 100 times. On dial-up, your mom's on the phone talking to somebody, talking to Aunt Gertrude, and you're like, Ma, get off the phone. I need the dial-up so I can figure out how to get past this section of Final Fantasy 9. Oh, it's brutal.
I need to know how to find Tantillion, the book thing. I've only got 20 minutes, Mom. The timer doesn't stop when I pause.
Oh my God, that's right.
I'm trying to find Ozma. He's killing me, literally.
This whole scenario.
And then you find out you're just supposed to cast zombie on Ozma and reflect on everybody and just let him heal himself to death.
My Ozma fight took me 4 to 5 hours, if I remember right, the first time I did it. Because when this is the important factor, I didn't know that I could cast mini on myself to make myself big again. Oh. So I would wait for him to cast that massive status effect spell to bring myself back. It was just a slog.
Wow.
Man, we were dedicated back when we had free time.
Seriously. And now the question really becomes then, and again, you're younger at this point, so I can't really fault you. After like an hour, I would like to think even 14-year-old me would have thought, I think I'm doing something wrong. But I guarantee you I would not have. I would have kept on digging that trench. I would have just kept on. I would have continued.
They're like, I'm not dead
So
yet, so
funny.
something is working.
Yeah,
Well, Ozma's problem specifically is that he heals so much. He doesn't have the biggest health pool, but he would
Constantly.
heal.
Yeah, he did a full quadruple 9 heal like every other turn. So, and his speed was super high, so his turns came crazy fast.
Yep. So he's constantly healing himself. That's brutal. Did you eventually prevail, JJ? Did you eventually got him? You whittled him. That's so funny. I love that so much. The kids these days, they don't understand. That's my.
We could talk about
agree.
fun things.
yes, and I
like
think
the
there's a lot of
possible remake that they're going.
I know.
It hasn't been official yet, but I have very high hope.
They they just like, oh, but we might, by
There's
the way,
just
this
so
screenshot got leaked and it's clearly from Final Fantasy IX. But
There's so much under stuff that if they are doing it, they were gonna get so much hate.
Well, no. So the person that leaked all the most recent details about the possible 9 remake, one of the things they said that struck me was they're not doing away with the ATB. They're not going to make it like a 7 remake. They want to keep the classic battle feeling for this one specifically.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and that made me think, oh, maybe they're going to touch up like more on the abilities and the skills of certain characters.
People still very much enjoy turn-based combat because you wouldn't have stuff like Octo Traveler.
Yeah, or Bravely Default, or like those type of things, and I think that kind of segues into a pretty interesting conversation. Someone yesterday asked me a question that I couldn't answer. If they were to do a remake, which would you prefer they remade, 6 or 9?
9.
Oh, that's tougher for me.
It is tough. If I had to choose, I would choose 9. I, of course, would want both because the storyline in 6 is so good.
Yeah. The thing is, I think I would choose 9 just because 9, like you said, it got more than its fair share of flack when it came out. And
Absolutely.
it wasn't really appreciated for the masterpiece that it is until much later in its life. Whereas 6 was acknowledged from day one.
Right.
It was.
Yeah.
People understood immediately what about 6 made it great. And so in a sense, even if they put out a thing where it was like, hey, everybody vote and we'll definitely for sure do a remake that everyone will love of one of these, depending on your votes. I would say I would still have to pick 9 because it deserved better.
It did.
Of a reception. It deserved better of a reception, and the remake would have a chance to not redeem the game, but redeem people, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Sure.
Like, because it would reach a fresh new set of eyes that aren't like looking at it from that cynical cyberpunk, like this is what we expect from Final Fantasy kind of look. They have the whole history of all the game library, across the Final Fantasy series to draw opinions from.
Right.
And
6 already got its pixel remaster, which is phenomenal, by the way.
oh yeah, I mean, top notch.
Yeah, my pick for that one was 9 because I don't trust the modern developers of Final Fantasy to do 6 properly. I just don't. And it's not because not because they're bad games. Not because they're bad games. I don't think it's their type of game. I don't think it's in their wheelhouse. I think they're very good at certain things. I don't think they would know how to do that. I don't think they could do 9 either, honestly. But of the two, and this is more personal because 6 is a very near and dear game to me. I don't think I could be objective. And as we close out this episode of A Gamer Looks at 40, let's share some final thoughts on Final Fantasy IX. Starting us off is Mekel, followed by Rick, and then Barry Carenza.
So I got a question for you.
Oh, all right. Let's go.
A question for you. So I know we've heard all these rumors about 9 getting a remake. Would you rather have 9 remade or 6?
Oh, man. I would say... Now, are we saying remake like Final Fantasy VII remake, or are we saying like another remaster where we're just updating visuals? And because we already kind of got that already, so shoot, man, I don't know.
Full from the ground up,
man. Oh, I don't like this question.
I want to suplex some trains, man.
I do. I would say I would prefer. I would say 9 because I think 6. I don't think they'd be able to do 6 properly. I don't trust them to do 6. Like a 6 remake right. I think we've explored those characters well. I don't know because there's so much more to that. Dang, that is a very challenging question. That's the hardest question I've been asked in quite some time. I'm going to get gut instinct. I would rather them remake 9 than 6 because I still think 6 is timeless as it sits. And I think my personal attachment to 6 is too strong. I don't know if I could be objective about a remake. So I'm going to take it from a personal standpoint where I don't have that kind of connection to 9. I think both would be tricky. I think both would be really tricky. I think, yeah. I mean, I'd like to live in both of those worlds more. That would be fun. That would be great. I'm just concerned that if they did a 6 remake, they would take liberties with the story, especially knowing. I don't trust Nomura. I think that's what it is. I don't trust them to completely rip out what made it joyful and made those games joyful and fun. I'd be too nervous it would get a Final Fantasy 16 sheen on it, which is fine for what it is, but I don't need an adult version of 6 or 9. I think what we have is great and playable and still holds up. So I know a lot of people are clamoring for that remake. I'm not clamoring for it. I'm certainly not clamoring for a 6 remake. Don't. It's good. Play the Pixel Remaster. It's great as it is. It's fine. And I don't think I'm claiming for a 9 either. But if you're going to do one or the other, I would say 9 because I don't think I could be objective about a 6. I just don't think I could be.
The only way I would even trust them doing it, like I said, I don't trust Nomura. Not saying he's bad at it.
Not at all. Nope.
It's just that him, and I would even say Yoshi P, they don't have the vision and the grand ambition that Sakaguchi-san has. If he is not attached to it, don't touch it. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
on that.
I agree with that. And to follow up on that too, it's not a knock against either one of those creators either, because they're good at certain things, right? They're good at certain things, and they're very good at certain things. I don't think they would do justice to the spirit of those 2 games. I think they would turn them into more modern Final Fantasy experiences, and I don't think those are jackets that fit that game. I just don't think that's clothing that fits either one of those games. And again, that's not a knock against either person. Obviously, Nomura is legendary, and Yoshi P is legendary, and they create good stuff. But I don't think that's their wheelhouse. I don't think that would. I don't think they would just. It wouldn't be a good mix.
If you want a proper like modern Final Fantasy 6 9-ish type game, Sakaguchi's latest game, Fantasian.
Yeah, good. I was interested when it came out.
Chef's kiss.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Chef's kiss.
All right. Fantastic. Cool. I looked into it when it first came out, and it just kind of left my radar. I'll have to throw it on the old wish list. But yeah, that sounds.
Try the demo.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a demo. I'll give it a shot. Totally. Mekel, let's close out with this one on 9. What would your elevator pitch be for somebody who's never played it, who's heard the hype, but wants to get your take on it. Like, you play as a kid and you played it recently, so you have modern experience and older experience. What's the elevator pitch for someone who wants to play Final Fantasy IX?
The elevator pitch would be is if you really want to experience what Final Fantasy is and what it at one point was and it really should be, from the perspective of the man who created it. You need to play Final Fantasy IX. If you don't play any other, play 6. But if you don't play any others, play 9, because it is from start to finish. There really aren't any low points. It is an adventure. It captures completely the essence of what Hironobu Sakaguchi was going for with the series. And it's whimsical. It's an adventure. It's got, honestly, with the exception of 6, it is the best cast in the series.
I would agree with that.
Everyone is lovable. You get attached to them. They're relatable. They're very human. Even the antagonists.
Yeah.
Even the antagonists. You can correlate a lot of what you're seeing today. You can correlate that to a lot of the characters in there. You got people who are on the extreme end, like Queen Braum, and you got super narcissists like Kuja, but you got very down-to-earth, lovable people like Garnet or Dagger, if you opted to call her that. You got people like Zidane, you got people like Vivi. Like, it's an adventure that will stick with you. And I know a lot of people say, oh, just play 7 Remake, play 7 Rebirth. You're not really getting Final Fantasy with that. It is Final Fantasy innate.
I think that's an interesting. It is controversial, but I think there's something to that, and I think that if you really want, it's, to me, 9 is like the Final Fantasy version of Breath of the Wild.
Yes,
for me, because Breath of the Wild is similar in that it is the ultimate expression of what the original creator wanted to do. It is it's the realization of a dream of a master from 30 years ago. And he finally was able to do exactly what he wanted with the hardware, with the right. Breath of the Wild is about exploring. It's about discovering. It's about learning. It's wonderful. It's my favorite Zelda game. And I think 9 is this Final Fantasy's Breath of the Wild in that same regard. So to kind of piggyback on that, I think it's very similar to Breath of the Wild in that regard, where it's the realization of a dream. It's the culmination of someone's vision for a series. And then when 10 rolls around, obviously a lot of that changes. I still love 10, don't get me wrong, but it never quite captures that again. And I don't think it ever will. I don't think it ever will. Any other final thoughts about Final Fantasy IX you'd like to share? Again, any of the personal stories or any personal recollections? Again, it sounds like one of your favorite games, and I appreciate that, and I love the fact that you have such a strong connection. So I'd love to just any final thoughts on it as we kind of wrap up our conversation a bit.
No, I think we touched on the most germane things that I was hoping to. I mean, we could certainly take another hour to talk about all of these things, but
totally
that would not be entirely respectful to the listeners' time. I think if you haven't played this and you're waiting for the remake, I would say just go ahead and play it before the remake.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's special here. The ports on Steam and PlayStation and Xbox and Switch are all very good. If you're playing on Steam, the Meguri mod is personally what I think the definitive way to play. It's free also, so no worries about that.
Nice.
I think you owe, if you're a fan of JRPGs and Final Fantasy and you haven't played it, I think you owe it to yourself to at least try it. If it's not for you after 10 hours, that's fine. But give it a try.
Any other final thoughts on 9? I think you really summed it up really well. I would say, how about this? What would the elevator pitch for you be to somebody who missed out on 9, like me, who who missed out on 9. It was the end of the life cycle for PS1. They had already moved on to the PS2. They probably didn't like 8, and they're like, I'm going to do another Final Fantasy game. Might skip this one. How would you pitch this to somebody now who to play it?
I think you described a lot of people, because I think 7 sold 8, and I think 8 didn't sell 9.
Sure.
I think that legit happened. But no, it's let's see. If you missed out on FF9 and you enjoy classic Final Fantasy with lighthearted moments, deep moments, dark moments, a fantastic cast of characters, unexpected twists and turns, some of the most memorable cutscenes you'll get, and you don't need 100 hours. It's a good chunk of time, but it goes by. It never feels like a chore. Then play FF9. Then it absolutely. If you're gonna play any of the 3 games on the PlayStation, of the PlayStation trilogy, play 9. It is by far the best one.
Closing out the final thoughts section of this series is Eric, followed by James and JJ, and bookending the entire Final Fantasy series, the one and only Julian of the Stage Select podcast. Any other thoughts or personal experiences with 9? Again, sounds like a game you try to play once a year, which is really cool. So you have a ton of experience with this game. Do you have any other just personal thoughts or recollections? Especially as this game as you've grown up with this game and the game's tones and themes have evolved for you as you've evolved as a person. Any other thoughts about kind of that progression? I think that's really cool that you've kind of grown up with this game.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing to me that the themes in the story and the things I've taken from it have changed over time as I have grown up with it, but at the core, it still remained the same game. I guess I would kind of take your same question that you asked me about 8 if I was recommending somebody to play it for the first time today. Sure. I think one of the criticisms I can lob at the game is that the game is very slow, especially when it comes to battles. Like when you get into a battle, the screen will swoosh in, and then the music will kick in and start playing, and then there'll be like a pan, like 3 or 4 different pans, like the landscape around you, and then the monsters will load in, and then your characters will load in, and then the ATB bar fills up pretty slowly compared to like the speed of some other games that you'd expect to play today. Yep. So I have heard that people going back to play it for the first time, especially being spoiled by how quick modern games are, don't have much of a patience for that. I would have 2 recommendations on that. First, definitely like play the Switch version, or I think the Steam version has it too. Again, has the speed up where you can kind of speed up through that. Yep. Or if you are playing on Steam, I believe you can go to Nexus Mods and get the Maguri mod, which does a bunch of amazing stuff for like the textures and like the backgrounds and stuff. And it gets rid of that slow battle intro and just kind of gets you into the battle and speeds things up a little bit. So
very cool.
Definitely a great quality of life. I forget who made that mod or the community of people that made that, but it's definitely, again, the communities of people around games are so incredible for the things that they do.
I love it.
So yeah, but I would highly recommend checking it out, especially if you did like 7, you did like 8, or even if you like different Final Fantasies. I think no matter what your Final Fantasy experience is, I think you'll go back and find something to love about 9, or something that you identify or associate your personal experience with Final Fantasy with, because like I said, it's an amalgamation of all the Final Fantasies that came before it, and it has so many elements of all those games, and even games that I've gone on to play later. I would see things be like, oh yeah, like that's kind of like in 9. Mm-hmm. I think you really it kind of just exemplifies like all the best qualities of what a Final Fantasy game is, at least to me.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I definitely agree. 9, I think though, for me was just such a great breath of fresh air. It was so refreshing to just be like, oh, this is fun. I get to have fun. I can have some lighthearted adventures with real emotional depth, which I think is what Final Fantasy generally does very well. It's always good at balancing those 2 scales, and 9 for me was such a revelation. We are over time by now, but let's. Any final thoughts on Final Fantasy IX that you wanted to share? Anything else that you wanted to talk about when it comes to that game before we close out?
So Final Fantasy IX was the first game to do this particular thing where it actually didn't bother me. And it's something we touched on earlier. It's the final boss switcheroo where because you have the battle with Kuja all like tranced up and it's playing the like rock guitars with the organ in the background and you're like, oh, this is it. And he's incredibly powerful and you're struggling for your life, and as soon as he's defeated it looks like it's going to go into a cutscene and suddenly you are fighting God. A god, the god. You're fighting something, and whatever he is, he's not happy to see you.
I didn't mind it because especially when you get the backstory, Kuja is your brother.
Yeah,
and Zidane is all about family. He's been an orphan. He was raised by the troop. And that is one of his biggest motivators is family and helping family.
Well, yeah, and it when you take the whole thing for what it is, essentially this like final boss character has been watching all of this play out in front of them, and has decided like, oh no, if one of you can go that bad, all of you have that potential. Yeah, we're starting over. Mm-hmm. We have to start over, and the whole point is to prove them wrong.
Right. And I think I like the Kuja because the Kuja has that moment. What I don't mind about Necron, because I had the exact same reaction when that happened in the game. I was like, oh, are we gonna fight now? We're gonna do a Final Fantasy thing where we're gonna find the existential evil that. The only reason I kind of am okay with that in 9 is that we unearthed something we didn't realize, like through Kuja's actions and his literal heel turn of like, wow, you know what, we all deserve to go. No one deserves to be here. We're all doomed. We should all be doomed. Which is to
destroy the crystal that sustains all life.
We're all going down. We're all going down. I get that from Kuja's perspective. I kind of get that. Like, yeah, I can see why you would make that choice. Necron is just the result of that choice. Is the evil we unearthed that no one knew about, and that we have to fight. And that I'm okay with, because again, it wasn't so much of like the surprise, even though it is a surprise. It wasn't quite that. Yeah,
and that's is Necron like Necron is a boss, but is Necron actually evil? Because from their perspective, like, it was Kuja who decided that there's just not going to be life anymore. They're not necessarily following through with that for him so much as saying we need something better and we can't get something better unless we start all the way over, because this is too complicated now.
Mm-hmm. We've gone too far too fast, and there's no coming back from this. When the theme of the game, of course, is that and that's that existential.
You can always choose the right choice.
Yeah, there's always tomorrow.
You always have a choice, and what you do today matters more than what you did yesterday.
Right. Yep. Exactly, because
and then the happy ending with Zidane and jumping onto the stage was just
tearing off the cloak, and then the queen just like rushes down and fights through the crowd and like leaps into his arms. Like it's this really like big emotional moment. And of course, she like punches him because we thought you were dead for a year.
Yeah, hey jerk! It's been a year. Yeah, but it might be one of my favorite endings of a Final Fantasy game. And even though it seems cliche and trite when we talk about it, everything was so well earned. It's such an earned ending. It's an ending they all deserve. You know,
they even really built up like that Steiner and Beatrix had like that smoldering love for each other like in the background. Like they wrote that so well that there's only like 2 or 3 scenes of them together in the whole game, and the ending of them like raising the Save the Queen together and shining the sunlight off of it makes total sense.
Yeah. It's great.
Like,
it's great.
It's not something where you're like, cheese, whatever. It's like, yay!
Yep.
And because it's such a high fantasy setting, all these cliche stuff totally work. You don't feel like they're cliches.
No, they really don't. Because again, there's an emotional weight there that was worked on. The game took a breath to exist and let these characters breathe. And now we have this great payoff. And where at the end of 8, again, not to go back on 8, at the end of 8, we're just basically back to square one. Like, we really haven't done anything. It's just literally reset. We've reset the timeline so a really bad thing didn't happen, but everything's kind of back to the way it was. Kind of back to even.
Nothing is resolved.
Nothing's resolved. It's just back to even.
Yeah,
cool.
Because all you've done is reset things so that everything you did now no longer paradoxes the universe out of existence.
Right.
Great.
So all we did was basically fix the holes in the dam. We didn't really do much. We just spent the whole time doing repair work. That's what we did. Where in 9, you had this great, like, beat, ba, 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 we did it. And it's so satisfying to, again, have a classic ending to something where the good guys win, the bad guys lose, and everyone gets what they deserve at the end, which is great. And it's very satisfying, and it just works. Man, any other thoughts on Final Fantasy IX? Again, I feel like I'm flying through it, but again, these 2 are not going to be as long as the ones I'm expecting. So, any other final thoughts or things that stick out to you, memories that stick out to you, moments, characters?
I'm just so happy that it exists.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that they got to get back together to do this, because they haven't really gotten back together since. They've done, like, the 3 of them have, like 2 of them will work together on something and whatnot. You'll see Amano, like, his art in other games, like, famously, like, he did the character designs for Cardia on the PlayStation 1, which was a strategy RPG. Uematsu has gone on to, after he left Square, he's done soundtracks here and there. Most recently, he reunited with Sakaguchi for Fantasian, which is a video game that you can play. I'll leave it at that. But I'm glad that, like, when they were still, like, really, like, on fire and, like, just kind of at the top of their game, they got to do this, because there was definitely, like, a timeline where they pitched this and the higher ups were like, well, no, we like sad boys now. You need to have a game with, adult proportioned sad boys. And no, here we got, like, a really effervescent game with super deformed happy-go-lucky thieves. And I think the world is better off for it.
And that just about does it for this edition of A Gamer Looks at 40. Thank you so much for going on this Final Fantasy journey with me. Like I said in the open, there's a good chance I do an episode on 10, but it's going to be many, many, many moons before I get around to it. There are other series and things I want to do. So if you're not a fan of Final Fantasy, you can rejoin the show safely. There's at least 2 people I know who have been waiting for this series to end. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you've been with me since the beginning, your listenership is greatly appreciated and is never, ever taken for granted. If you haven't done so already, join my Discord, where I hang out, talk about games, talk about life, and all the other things in between. Also check me out on TikTok, Instagram, and a lot of the other socials. And until next time, please, please, please be kind to yourselves and each other.